Traditionally, you would think that when you run into a hard situation, you could always, at the very least, have your family to fall back on. Those are the people who would be there in all situations, always have your back, and always be able to offer you support. But to a degree, does it not seem like Bryan Kohberger has no support here? There have been reports they're not at these hearings, and there's also been reports they're not attending these hearings via Zoom. And we also know that they've remained relatively quiet throughout this whole case. So has Bryan Kohberger's family abandoned him? What more could they do for their son? Or do you believe they actually think he's guilty? And does it appear like Ann Taylor's in over her head with this case, and she may very well be the wrong attorney for Bryan Kohberger? Well, let's talk about it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
First and foremost, to the officer that pulled me over this morning and only gave me a warning, that is greatly appreciated. And as a friendly reminder to everybody, stop signs are not a suggestion, and the California roll isn't an appropriate move. That being said, welcome to The Point, YouTube's last legitimate open discussion channel where you can feel free to disagree before a content creator starts attacking me. And does it seem like content creators have been at each other's throats lately? You've had some severing all ties, while others have just downright attacked one another. But that is not what we do here. In fact, I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction, because I stumbled onto a video JB Gunner put out earlier this week talking about the grand jury indictment, and he raised a very valid point. Now, I'll link the video down in the description below, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but he was essentially saying if he had a family member who was in this type of situation, he would be doing absolutely anything and everything to ensure they had the best representation possible. He also made the statement that there is in no way, shape, or form he would recommend a public defender for anybody, especially someone in this type of case right here, where if you're found guilty, there's a good chance you'll get the DP. So why hasn't the family got a private attorney for Bryan Kohberger? His life is on the line at the end of the day. Some have raised the question that this is a monetary issue. Now, it was reported very early on that Bryan Kohberger's family sold that home in Pennsylvania. And while I couldn't verify that that was true, if they did sell the home, that would mean they had some money left over. And if they didn't sell the home, that would mean that they would have a home that they could get a loan against to pay for Bryan Kohberger to have some sort of representation. And you would think that family members would do something like this when their son or brother is in this type of position and they happen to believe he's innocent. But are their actions actually them admitting they believe he's guilty? While staying out of the spotlight throughout all this trial, they did issue this statement very early on, and I'll show it for you right here. They go on to say, "We have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence, rather than judge unknown facts and make erroneous assumptions." They go on to say that they'll continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family, we will love and support our son and brother. And they offer condolences to the victims and their family. Now, while some people have gone on to say that their use of the word presumption of innocence, instead of saying he is innocent, indicates they believe he may have done it, I don't personally think that's the truth. But people have got on this platform and other social media platforms and said that their silence actually speaks volumes. And while yes, people do distance themselves from other people when legal issues arise, but there are also other reasons why you wouldn't necessarily want to speak out. When you look at people who have been tied to this case and how they have been treated online, it does seem like staying silent is the best policy at this point, because every little thing you do and say will be hyper-analyzed, twisted, and manipulated. A lot like what people did with their opening statement that they issued out very early on. But who really knows if they did or didn't try to get Bryan Kohberger a private attorney? With the gag order in place and nobody speaking publicly on his side of the argument, there may have been a scenario where his family did go to Bryan Kohberger and they said, "Hey, we're going to get you a private attorney. We're going to get you the best representation possible." But Bryan Kohberger turned it down. And why would he turn it down? You would think that that doesn't make any sense at all. Well, what about the possibility that Bryan knew his family has already had past financial troubles? It was also reported that Bryan Kohberger's parents filed Chapter 7 bankruptcies in 1996 and again in 2010. And what if he realized this past history and he didn't want to cause any further financial strain on the family? And when we talk about other possible reasons why his family hasn't gotten him a private attorney and the possibility of him turning it down, is the fact that both his sisters have lost their jobs simply because they're related to him. Which does lead into another point that JB brought up. Why not crowdsource this thing? Because you would think with the number of people that believe he is absolutely 100% innocent, that they wouldn't have a hard time raising money to hire an attorney. And at this particular point, if both his sisters did actually lose their job, then what's the point of staying silent anymore? What's the point of trying to keep out of the spotlight? Now, if those reports are true, and they are already being persecuted because of who they're related to, then I'll just go on and say that's absolutely ridiculous and we need to do better, America. I don't personally believe that a family who has had no ties to any type of crime should be punished or persecuted over a family member. But you would think with all the possibilities that somebody could use right now to raise money for a private defense, especially one that's as high profile as this, with the large number of people that believe he is 100% innocent or see doubt at this point, that something else is going on here. What if Bryan Kohberger is absolutely 100% turning all these offers down? What if he believes Ann Taylor is the right person for him? Maybe they have developed some sort of really good personal relationship or working relationship. Because there has to be some reason that she is still there with all these other available resources that the family could have access to. Now, I, for one, have been an Ann Taylor supporter for the vast majority of this hearing. I don't necessarily agree 100% with the idea that she is doing a bad job or this is some type of backdoor railroading that's going on in the public eye. But have we all not noticed the change in her attitude and demeanor in the courtroom from very early on in these hearings to now? Those first few hearings when Ann Taylor would get up there and speak, it seemed like Bill Thompson didn't know up from down, and he left that courtroom with several black eyes. But I can't be the only one that's noticed the change in her demeanor at these last few hearings. It does seem like she went from an old school fire and brimstone attitude to a kumbaya, everybody's friends, everybody's working together. We all just want to do this thing right. And we only want to do this trial once. And when you talk about the speed at which both these parties want to get this case to trial, did we not hear very early on Ann Taylor was eager to get this thing to trial? Bryan's defense team would get up there and say that there are no links to Bryan Kohberger and any of these victims. There is no DNA in the car or the apartment tying Bryan Kohberger to the scene of this crime. We're not sure how the police arrived to Bryan Kohberger being the suspect. And when you have sentences like that, statements like that on the public record, you would think they would want to be pedal to the metal. You would think they would be so eager to get this thing to trial that the state would be doing everything they can to stall this situation. Very similar to how we see Delphi going down. Because Richard Allen's attorneys have done nothing but throw punch after punch, and the prosecution in that case has absolutely been on its heels from the moment they announced that that case had possible ties to Odinism. But what we're seeing right now with the Idaho 4 does seem like the exact opposite. Listen, them trying to get this grand jury indictment thrown out on the grounds of it not being at a higher standard was absolutely ridiculous. Now, I know several content creators have touched on this, as well as the lawyer you know. And while I can't say I 100% disagree with the idea that there needs to be something a little bit higher than essentially hearsay before you can charge somebody with a crime, the law is the law, and it's been that way for the longest time. And now we're having another motion on a change of venue. I don't personally believe that this one's going to go through either. Not because I don't believe they need to do a change of venue. I just have the understanding that you need to at least try to get a jury formed before you can make something like that happen. Now, I know people have said that they have sent out questionnaires, and in fact, John Judge was one of those people they had sent a questionnaire to. But I haven't personally seen that in any article, and if you know what article says that, you can let me know down in the comments below. But have y'all noticed a shift in which the defense wants to get this thing to trial. Very early on, it seemed like they were pedal to the metal, while now it seems like the state is ready or going to be ready quicker, and the defense is doing what they can to delay this. Now, I understand delay tactics is a common practice when you're in a criminal defense case. All in all, when we see cases like this where there does seem to be a complete lack of evidence, you would think the defense wants to go full throttle and get this thing over with. I still don't 100% believe that she's the wrong attorney for this case. She's taken the shot she should take, but it does seem like very recently a lot of people have had some mixed feelings about Ann Taylor. And I'd be curious to know if you're one of those people down in the comments below. So in a situation where it's doable that you could get a private attorney, would you settle for a public defender? Do you think Bryan Kohberger is actually doing the right thing by having a public defender? Does Ann Taylor have an ace up her sleeve we don't know about? Or is she simply representing Bryan Kohberger right now because he believes in her? And if he believes in her, then everybody else should believe in her abilities. As always, if you see any of these things differently, you can let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. Y'all stay safe. I'll catch you in the next one.